I am Julia Smith, 62 years old. I live alone in an apartment in New York City. My mother divorced right after I was born, and I was raised in a single-parent household. Fortunately, after the divorce, my father provided enough support for me to go to college. Later, I joined a relatively well-known company and had an arranged marriage through my boss's introduction. Eventually, my son was born, and we had happy days together. But my husband suddenly passed away from an illness shortly after our son started his career. My son's name is John. As a child, he was a sweet boy who cherished me, but his personality began to change around the time he entered college. After my husband passed away, his selfishness worsened, and he started saying things like, "I'm an adult now, so don't bother me." While it meant he had become independent, it made me feel a bit lonely, maybe because I'm getting old. John is now going to marry a woman named Emily, the daughter of Mr. Anderson, a client he met through work. Her family is quite prestigious, and at first, they seemed to look down on my son for coming from a single-parent household. However, her father said, in this day and age, it's old-fashioned to talk about family status. If they are happy, that's all that matters, and so John ended up marrying into their family. The wedding was held at her family home, and I was astonished by the size and grandeur of the place. I then gave my house to my son and moved into a new apartment bought with my late husband's inheritance. Though it's still in the city, I enjoy the quiet suburban environment. Emily retains some of her old family sensibilities. She seems to look down on me, who lives in a small city apartment after a divorce. She seems to assume I'm a poor pensioner. Excuse me, if I may. Yes, what is it? Don't you find it financially difficult? Thank you for your concern. I'm managing fine. Our family is from a well-known old lineage. My father is the CEO of a famous furniture company. We are quite wealthy. Do you understand that? She boasts about her family as if it's the most natural thing in the world. So, you don't expect financial support from us, do you? What? What do you mean? To be blunt, I don't want our money to go towards your living expenses. Does she think I'm some poor person leeching off her family's wealth? Well, that thought never crossed my mind. It might not be now, but eventually, right? What kind of upbringing did she have? Oh, thank you for your concern, but there's no need to worry about that. Remember those words. With that, she walked away from me. Her outrageous behavior clearly showed her nasty personality. Then, one day, my son and his wife visited my home. Excited to see my son after a long time, I prepared a feast with homemade dishes. My mother was from the South, so I specialize in light, flavorful cooking. I prepared simmered vegetables and braised fish. However, it seems the flavor was too bland for my daughter-in-law, who is from the Midwest, and she didn't seem to enjoy it. This food seems so poor. Don't you have any meat? I'm sorry. I grew up near the ocean, so I'm good at cooking fish, but not so much with meat. I humbly apologized, but she cut me off, saying, "It seems like you had quite a poor diet." But we weren't poor. I managed to retort. Yeah, I don't know what you mean by poor, but we weren't poor. My son, unusually, backed me up. But with just vegetables and fish, it looks shabby. And the soup with seaweed seems like it's instant. Her condescension knew no bounds. It's not instant. I made it from scratch. I was so angry that I sharply retorted. Then my son, inexplicably, began to support his wife. Mom, her family's meat dishes are amazing. The Midwest has a lot of premium beef. And I've become quite a fan. Indeed, her family is from a region famous for its premium beef. Please try our local beef. You can cut it with chopsticks and it melts in your mouth. Oh. Sorry, we always eat high-end stuff. It's quite expensive. So it's out of reach for you. She covered her mouth and laughed. I could only manage a wry smile. Then, one day, I was invited to her family's home. It was just after the summer, and they said, "It's calm now that the tourists have left, so how about a visit?" This was my son's idea. I didn't have any plans, and I rarely had the chance to visit the Midwest, so I accepted. Even though it was an invitation, I brought traditional sweets from a long-established shop in New York as a gift. However, she said, you didn't have to. We eat these all the time, but since you brought them, we'll take them. I was irritated by her snide remark, but this was her family's home. Everyone there was practically an adversary. Her family home was as grand as ever. They had renovated the garden and built a pond with koi swimming elegantly. These koi are worth about $100,000 each. There aren't many, but we prioritize quality over quantity. I advised them on it. She proudly stated. Her domineering nature was clear. My son and his wife then invited me to a nearby luxury hot spring inn. I enjoyed the splendid facilities and the premium beef, having a great time. I would have enjoyed it more without her snide comments. Then, when I went to her family home to say goodbye and thank them, we all sat down for tea. Thank you for everything. I appreciate the wonderful hot springs and delicious food. To my surprise, my gratitude sparked a confrontation. Oh, it's nothing. No need to thank us. My daughter-in-law was ready for a fight. I'm grateful my son has married into such a good family. As a mother, I appreciate it. I said, not really meaning it. But I'm worried about you. After seeing your home, I got a bit concerned. You live on a pension, right? Well, it's enough for me to live on. But won't you eventually run out and come asking for help from my family? I'd prefer to avoid that. I've never thought about that. The exchange was getting heated. No, it's likely in the near future. That's why I want to settle things now. She was getting to the heart of the matter. Settle things? What do you mean? I'm not heartless. I invited you so you could spend some pleasant time with your son one last time. Did you enjoy it? Yes, I did enjoy it. Good. Then let's cut ties from here. What? What do you mean? We don't want to be bothered if you end up becoming a beggar. We want you to become a complete stranger to us. A beggar? A stranger? I repeated her words, completely unable to grasp their meaning. Yes, I'm saying we want to sever ties with you now. Do you understand? Although anger surged within me at her blatant condescension, I managed to suppress it. Understood. If that's what you want, so be it. Relieved by my agreement, she added, I'm glad to hear that. We've arranged for your return on the bullet train, so don't worry. Goodbye. Thank you for everything. I said, leaving with a bitter farewell, and returned to New York. Though I was furious at the treatment from them, I quietly resumed my life. To calm my mind, I took a trip to my beloved Boston. Since then, I completely stopped sending money to my son. I had been giving him a small allowance from the dividends of the stocks I inherited from my father, but since I was told to sever ties, I had no choice but to stop. My son tearfully begged me to keep it a secret. But I refused, saying, we're severed, so no more support. Apparently, my allowance was a secret from his wife. She controlled the finances, and he was using my allowance to buy anime merchandise as a hobby. He had started collecting again after she had thrown away his prized collection when they got married. Then I heard that her father had collapsed. Fortunately, he survived, but he couldn't continue working due to a stroke, and the business was to be handed over to my son and his daughter. Though her family was quite wealthy, the business was notorious for its aggressive management and had garnered much criticism. With my son and daughter-in-law taking over, many business partners who were unhappy with the previous management stopped doing business with them, causing the company to start declining. Since I was cut off, I refrained from visiting her father, even though I would typically go to see him. Given her nature, she would likely run the business the same way as her father. However, in my opinion, she doesn't seem to have much business acumen. Her arrogance and tendency to look down on others made the future seem uncertain. Sure enough, sales decreased, and a new business venture she initiated failed, increasing their debts. Sales of their main product, luxury furniture, continued to stagnate, and the company's future was looking bleak. I decided to just watch how things unfolded. The company underwent a major overhaul, replacing the entire board. Under my son's leadership, they planned to downsize their main operations and enter new sectors. It seemed this decision was made at the behest of my daughter-in-law, the principal shareholder. Despite being the CEO, my son appeared to be disregarded. This was just like her. However, this strategy was a major failure. Sales of their main operations plummeted, and the new ventures performed well below expectations. With declining performance, the stock price dropped significantly, employees began to leave, and the company's survival became uncertain. I watched the stock prices, noting they continued to hit new lows, eliminating dividends. And the outlook from financial reports and brokerage firms was grim. Eventually, the company might be delisted. If that happens, trading the stock on the market would no longer be possible, making it extremely difficult to raise funds. Banks would likely hesitate to lend, leaving asset sales as the only option. Her family owned extensive forest land locally, but its value wasn't significant. Still, they'd have to resort to selling it eventually. Being cut off, there was no point in me worrying. I continued to live modestly. Occasionally, my son and daughter-in-law tried to contact me, but I ignored them, having no need to respond. Then, while I was enjoying my annual autumn trip to Boston for the fall foliage, something happened. This year's mushrooms were smaller due to the weather, but they were exceptionally flavorful. The vibrant autumn leaves outside complemented the taste and helped soothe my mind. I was savoring the autumn in Boston with my eyes and taste buds, taking my time, when a maid informed me, "You have a visitor." A visitor? I had no appointments, and only a few people knew I was in Boston. "May I have the visitor's name?" "Yes," she said. "Her name is Emily." "Emily?" I thought for a moment and quickly realized. I know her, but we are currently estranged. Please ask her to leave." "Yes, understood." The maid left, but soon returned, saying, "She insists on seeing you and is even begging on her knees." What should we do? In that case, show her to the guest room. I will join her after I prepare myself. I returned to my room and changed into appropriate attire. "Thank you for waiting. It's been a while. I understand we are currently estranged. What brings you here?" I greeted her calmly. "It's been a while. I came to apologize for my past rudeness and to ask for your forgiveness." "Oh, there must be some misunderstanding. I met you purely on a whim. Misunderstandings can be painful later on." "No, I apologize for my words." Her face was pale from my curt attitude and her own nervousness. "I've heard that this grand mansion belongs to you. Could you tell me how you came to acquire it?" She must have discovered my true background somewhere. It was obvious that she came here in desperation, struggling to secure funds. I smiled slightly and said, "That is none of your business." After a pause, I continued, "This is my father's villa. He passed it down to me." I decided to reveal my true identity. "Your father?" "My father was James Thompson, the former president of Thompson Trading. He has passed away." "Do you not know of him?" "Wait, the former president of Thompson Trading. So, you are his daughter?" She is panicking after learning new facts. Let me explain it to her in detail. "Yes. I am his daughter from his first marriage, and I use my mother's surname. The current president is my half-brother. I've distanced myself from the Thompson family after my mother passed away. I am not suited for business by nature, so I handed over the management rights to my younger brother. I wanted to live the rest of my life quietly. So I received part of the company's shares from my father as a pre-inheritance and took over this house." "I see." It seemed to click for her. "Let me explain how I manage my life now. I don't trade stocks, as I am not knowledgeable about them, but I receive dividends twice a year, amounting to about $100,000. Which is sufficient for me. I don't like living extravagantly. This house is managed by my brother. It has staff who maintain it, and I can use it freely whenever I want." "I see." She seemed at a loss for words. "So, what brings you here today?" "I must remind you, we are supposed to be estranged." "Yes, I am aware. But our business is struggling. Could you possibly help us out? Is there anything you can do?" She pleaded, wringing her hands. "Oh. And why is that?" I asked, feigning ignorance. My father fell ill, and my husband took over as president, but he is inexperienced. I thought it would be better if I, being a blood relative, managed things, so I helped him, but... So, my son is just a figurehead while you hold the real power? Yes, that's correct. At this point, she thought any strange excuses would be futile. It seems there is no lie in her explanation. And what happened then? The changes I made to the product lineup failed, leading to significant losses and debt. I tried everything I could. So, you tracked me down? Yes, that's right. I sighed deeply. So, you want me to help you? Yes, please, we need your help. Do you remember what you said to me? If I remember correctly, it was, we will cut ties because we can't be bothered if you become a beggar. Now, what do you call your current behavior? I am begging for money. People generally call that a begging. As you say. Right? I smiled and declared. I refuse. You underestimate me. After looking down on me so much, you now say please help? Unbelievable. I'm sorry. Please, I beg you. She got down on her knees, her forehead almost touching the floor. Without even looking at her, I said, I am not kind enough to help a beggar. Please leave. Please. The banks won't lend us money anymore, and we have no one else to turn to, she continued to plead, not caring that her dress was disheveled. I'll say it again. Please leave. I wish you all the best. I said, and asked the maid, please escort our guest to the door. And make sure to clean up after she leaves. For maids lifted her from both sides, as she refused to move from her kneeling position, and dragged her out of the room. I returned to my room, gazing at the fiery autumn leaves, and whispered softly. I just want to live peacefully. I later heard that her company went bankrupt. To settle their debts, they sold off all their land and property and lived in a small rented house, working multiple part-time jobs. I continued living in my apartment in New York. When my son got married and moved out, he bought me a cat, saying I might be lonely. A Maine Coon named Whiskers. He has long fur, which requires a lot of care, but he loves being brushed and is always calm. Watching his content face makes me feel happy too. Whiskers, we should visit Boston again. We always go in the fall, maybe we should try winter this time? You don't like the heat. So summer wouldn't be fair to you. As I petted him, he playfully nibbled on my hand. Hey. I scolded him, and he licked the spot he bit as if to apologize. You're such a sweetie. I was completely smitten with Whiskers. And so, I went to Boston again. It was snowing heavily outside. Whiskers was in my arms, watching the snow with me. The year is almost over. When you first came, you fit in my palm, and now you're so big. He seemed unusually calm, and I realized he had fallen asleep. Really, you grow while you sleep. But if you get any bigger, I won't be able to hold you. I gently touched Whiskers' nose and turned my gaze back outside. A quiet, snowy night. I started feeling sleepy too. I wonder if the morning will bring a beautiful snowy landscape. With that thought, I snuggled into bed. Whiskers snuggled in beside me. I felt like I was going to have a good dream. I closed my eyes with that thought.